Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to copy paste some code that I made in advance, just so that we can make an example of how a page might look like. So I'm going to run this code. So this is about the cat photos. If I scroll down, everything's here. Now moving forward, what I want to do now is I want to make, what's it called? What I want to do now is that I want to make radio buttons. When I say radio buttons, I'm referring to these, how we can select these. To make a radio button, what you do is that inside the same form, because this is all part of one form, you want all the data to be submitted together. We create a tag. This tag, just like the other one, is called the input tag because we're inputting data, right? And then, so what we want to do is that we want to make a tag. This tag will be called the label tag. And then we'll make a slash label tag. I'll try and separate this from other code. Inside this tag, we type input, because we're obviously inputting data. Type, so the type of input is radio buttons. So what we do, we type the short version, which is just radio. Name equals to indoor outdoor. I'll explain what names are in a second. And then we type here the text that we want to appear there. So if I run the code, you'll see that there's a little indoor checkbox there. And if I write BR here, obviously this goes to the next line. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write 2 line breaks, just so that's separated, because it looks nicer that way. And I'm going to make sure this button is just below here. Control X, Control V. So now we're going to talk a little bit about names and why did we put this here. Now, if I were to write 2 of these, so I'll copy paste this code. If I was to write 2 of these, and let's say this was meant to be outdoor, right? Then what will happen? Oops, sorry. If I run the code, we'll have outdoor here. Oh yeah, and I want to make another line break for submit button. Run code. 2 line breaks, because that makes it look nicer. Run code. There we go. What was I saying? Yep. So when I write this here and that there, if I would write something else here, like let's say test, run code. Then what will happen is that when I'm receiving this data, I don't know that these are in a group. What the names tell us here, they basically group these radio buttons together so that we know that there's something separate, right? So if I was to write test here, I can select both of these. But how radio buttons work, you're only meant to select one of them, okay? So make sure that your name is the exact same, because your name is basically your group ID, right? And when I say group ID, I mean that when we run the code, we can only select one of these. I hope that makes sense. So what the name element does is that it groups these together so that we know that both these radio buttons are part of one group. These aren't separate radio buttons. So then you have the other question, what are these label tags for? By putting input elements inside of a label element, you're basically associating the tags together. Make sense? When I say associated, it means the information is just associated together. It's not something like profound or anything like that. And plus, no other code can be associated with these, input tags here after you close this tag. So now when I'm submitting my form data, I need to do something which is called assigning values. However, before I do that, I want to quickly show you something. When you're writing your labels, you want to write label 4 equals quotation marks indoor, and then you want to write after input, you want to write input ID equals indoor. I know this seems a little bit, let's say, stupid or doesn't make any sense. This is mostly just good practice. Reason being is because you want to make sure that these are together so that assistive technologies can help with making these forms, etc. So I want to do the same here. So label 4 outdoor, input ID equals outdoor. Now, let's make something called checkboxes. So we've made our radio buttons. Now, how do we make checkboxes? To make checkboxes, just like last time, you want to make labels. So BR. The only reason I'm putting 2 line breaks is because I think they look nicer. So label / label, and this label will be for, let's say, the cat's personality equals personality. Wait, if I'm talking about sorry, I should say loving, because personality is something else. We'll talk about that. So label 4 loving, and what I'm going to write here is input ID equals loving, because what the text for this is going to be loving. I'll show you later. So input ID equals loving, value is equal to indoor. So why did I say indoor? Value is equal to input ID is equal to loving. The type, so you know how I wrote type equals radio? The type here is going to be pretty easy. It's just checkbox. Name is where we write personality. Because as I mentioned earlier, is that if I'm putting multiple radio buttons, I want to write their name as indoor outdoor so that they can be grouped together, right? So name here is going to be personality. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to write 3 of these. Controls. Oh wait, I should finish writing. So I'm going to write here loving. I'm going to put / label. Wait, I already have / label. And then I'm going to copy paste this. Control C. Control P, Control P. And instead of loving, I'll say happy. Change my ID to happy so that the browser knows. After that, that stays under personality. And then we'll write here happy. And then we'll write caring. Oops, my bad. And then we'll write caring. And over here we'll also write caring. Once again, so that the browser knows. And caring here. So if I run this code, you'll see we have loving. Did I spell caring wrong? I think that's how I spell caring. So loving, caring, and happy. So as you can tell, the difference between this, checkboxes, and radio buttons is that radio buttons you can only select one. Checkboxes you can select multiple, however you like. Now we have all of this, and what we're doing right now is that we're submitting data. The user inputs data. That's why we have all these input here. And they're going to click whatever they want. So what do we see on our end? Now, if you think about it, when this data is inputted, they don't get all this code, right? When they get this, what actually happens is that they actually get the value on. So I'll try and write this down for you. So when this form data is inputted, it will say indoor. So we'll talk about these for example. So they'll have the name there. Indoor, outdoor, equal to. So this is the name, and one of these values could be selected. So the name value that was selected or assigned here was on. That's it. So whenever I write indoor, outdoor, it will just say on. And we both know that's pretty useless. Especially if you have a lot of values, you don't know what on and off even means. So what we want to do, we want to assign values. So we want that name to equal a certain value that's selected by the user. How do we do this? After our ID, over here, you want to write value equals, quote unquote, indoor. What am I saying? Indoor. Then, same thing over here. Value equals outdoor. So the reason why we're indoor here and outdoor here is obviously because this is indoor, this is outdoor. So just so that you know, it's always going to be the name is going to equal to the value that you've inputted. Unfortunately, however, this is the same for checkboxes. For checkboxes as well, we want to also input our values. So after our ID, I'm going to say value is equal to caring. Actually, forget about that. We won't worry about that for now, because I think it works a little bit different for checkboxes. Now moving forward, one of the last things we're going to look at now is if I run this code, right? All of these values aren't selected, except if I were to reload this page, you might notice that these values are checked automatically. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to make it so that these values are checked even when we load up the page. So what you do, you go here, inside your code, you want to straight away, let me just scroll up, you want to straight away write checked. And same with your very first value here. It's good practice to make sure that only the first one is checked. So if I run the code, you'll see that these are checked automatically. I didn't have to do anything. Now, that's it for inputting all data in general. Now, the last thing we want to look at is division tags, or commonly known as div tags. First off, we want to write our normal doc type. Doc type, HTML, obviously. Then we're going to write our HTML tags, HTML/HTML. And we'll write something simple like h1 hello world /h1. Run the code. Hello world. There we go. Now, this is how it usually looks like. However, you always want your header tags. So head /head, and you want your body tags. Actually, we don't put our headers in there, do we? Control X. Headers always go in our body tags. Body /body. So run this again. That's in our body. In our header tags, what we want are a couple of things, but I don't want to make this a little bit complicated, but I'll quickly go through what we put in our header tags. In your header tags, you put different types of tags, and in our body tags, we put certain types of tags. In our header tags, we put any links, any link tags, any metadata, scripts as well. We also put in our title tags, something we've actually used quite a bit here. Now you also have your body tags, and inside your body tags compared to your header tags, you'll have the actual contents of your web page. And otherwise, that's about it. There is one more thing I'd like to mention, which is div tags. I'm going to put up an image to make this pretty simple. Div tags basically break up your page into divisions, hence why it's called div. And what you can do with these divisions is that you can assign code. So you say, in this div tag, and we obviously assign IDs to them. So in this div tag, we'll assign the ID. This is the blog, for example, right? So div ID blog. And then what's going to happen is that we'll say we want the background to be blue. So in that division tag, what's going to happen is that all the text in the background of that, you'll see that behind the text, everything is blue. But that's only an example. That's what div tags can be used for. There are many other examples and many other uses, but all you need to know is that you can just put in a div tag like shown on screen, and that's about it for part 3 of the HTML course. That should be it for the whole HTML beginner's intro course. Thank you for tuning in. Your assignment will now be to use all the tags that we've mentioned in this part of the module, so in part 3, and utilize all of these tags to develop a web page. The web page can be about anything you want. And yeah, just make sure you use every single type of tag throughout this module, the second module, and the first module. Basically, all the tags you learned about in HTML. Use all the tags to make a web page. That's about it. Thank you.